In the quiet suburbs of Springfield, Massachusetts, there once lived a boy whose story would captivate the nation. 9-year-old Mike Johnson was known for his curious mind and gentle spirit, a child whose disappearance would leave an aching void in his community, only to be filled 20 years later by a revelation that would challenge everything we thought we knew about fate, identity, and the mysterious ways life can transform even the most tragic circumstances. If you enjoy stories of extraordinary disappearances and remarkable returns, subscribe now to join our community of mystery enthusiasts. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains of Mike Johnson's bedroom, casting warm patterns across his collection of science books and half-assembled robot kits. At 9 years old, Mike was already showing signs of exceptional intelligence, particularly when it came to anything with wires, circuits, or motors. His small desk was cluttered with sketches of inventions, ideas that sprang from a mind too active to be contained by conventional toys or games. "Mike, breakfast is ready," Lisa Johnson called from downstairs, her voice carrying the gentle authority of a mother who doubled as an elementary school teacher. Mike emerged from his room wearing his favorite blue t-shirt with a cartoon rocket ship, his blonde hair sticking up in places despite Lisa's attempts to tame it that morning. His bright eyes, already alert despite the early hour, sparkled with anticipation for the day ahead. The Springfield Elementary School Science Fair, an event he'd been preparing for over the past 3 months. "Today's the big day, huh?" Tom Johnson, Mike's father, looked up from his newspaper. A postal worker with a passion for woodworking, Tom had helped Mike build the wooden base for his science project, a small drone that could be programmed to follow simple flight patterns. "I think I'm gonna win, Dad," Mike said with the unwavering confidence unique to children. He scooped up a spoonful of cereal, his mind clearly elsewhere, already at the school gymnasium where the science fair would be held. Lisa smiled, ruffling her son's hair. "Just remember what we talked about. It's not about winning, it's about learning and having fun," Mike finished, having heard this particular life lesson many times before. "But I still think I might win." The Johnson home was modest but warm, a small 3-bedroom house with faded blue siding on Maple Street. What it lacked in luxury, it made up for in love. Photos of Mike lined the walls. Mike as a baby, Mike on his first bicycle, Mike holding up a fish he'd caught with his father at Lake Springfield. The house was filled with evidence of a child cherished and nurtured. At 8:30 a.m., the family piled into their aging Chevrolet sedan. The drone project, carefully wrapped in a protective cloth, sat on Mike's lap. His fingers tapped nervously against the wooden base as they drove the short distance to Springfield Elementary. "Your drone is going to be the coolest thing there," Tom assured his son, watching him in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Patterson said we should focus on practical applications," Mike replied, referring to his science teacher. "I wrote about how drones could deliver medicine to people who can't leave their houses." Lisa turned in her seat. "That's very thoughtful, Mike." The school parking lot was already filling up when they arrived. Parents carried poster boards, model volcanoes, and various contraptions toward the gymnasium. Mike's best friend, Charlie Davis, waved excitedly from across the lot, standing next to what appeared to be a solar-powered car. "I see Charlie." Mike's face lit up. "Can I go show him my drone?" "We'll all go together," Lisa said, knowing her son's tendency to get distracted when excited. The gymnasium had been transformed into a showcase of juvenile scientific exploration. Long tables lined the space, each with a designated spot for the young scientists to display their work. The air buzzed with the energy of children explaining their projects to judges, parents taking photos, and teachers attempting to maintain some semblance of order. Mike's table was in the technology section, sandwiched between a computer program that translated English to Spanish and a homemade weather station. He carefully unwrapped his drone, setting it up with precision that belied his age. "This looks impressive, Mike," Mr. Patterson said, stopping by to check on his students. A tall man with glasses and a genuine passion for nurturing young minds, he had recognized Mike's potential early in the school year. "Are you ready for the judges?" Mike nodded enthusiastically. "I programmed 3 different flight patterns. Want to see?" Before Mr. Patterson could answer, an announcement came over the PA system asking all participants to remain at their stations as judging would begin in 15 minutes. "Save the demonstration for the judges," Mr. Patterson winked. "Good luck." As the morning progressed, the gymnasium grew more crowded. Parents, siblings, and community members wandered between tables, admiring the creativity on display. Tom and Lisa circulated as well, proud to see their son confidently explaining his project to anyone who stopped by. "We're going to check out some of the other exhibits," Lisa told Mike around 11:30 a.m. "Will you be okay here by yourself for a bit?" "Mom, I'm not a baby," Mike rolled his eyes, the universal sign of a child asserting independence. "We'll be back in 20 minutes, Tom added. "If you need anything, Mrs. Wilson is right over there." He pointed to a teacher monitoring the technology section. Mike barely registered their departure, already engrossed in conversation with one of the science fair judges, an older man with a clipboard who seemed genuinely interested in the drone's capabilities. The gymnasium continued to fill with visitors. The noise level rose. Excited children, chatting adults, occasional announcements over the PA system. It was a typical Saturday at a school event, unremarkable in every way. No one could have predicted that this ordinary day would soon become the focus of a 2-decade mystery. At 11:52 a.m., Charlie Davis noticed that Mike was no longer at his station. The drone remained on the table, but its creator had vanished. Charlie thought little of it initially, bathroom break perhaps, or a quick trip to the water fountain. By 12:10 p.m., when Tom and Lisa returned to Mike's table, their son was nowhere to be found. "He probably went looking for us," Tom suggested, though a faint note of concern had already crept into his voice. Lisa scanned the crowded gymnasium. "I'll check the bathrooms." The next 30 minutes unfolded with increasing urgency. Tom searched the cafeteria, where food was being served. Lisa checked every bathroom in the school. Charlie and other classmates were questioned. Had anyone seen Mike? When did they last notice him? Did he say where he was going? At 12:45 p.m., with Mike still missing, the school principal made an announcement, asking everyone to stay in place while they located a missing student. The atmosphere in the gymnasium shifted from festive to tense. Parents held their children closer. Teachers conducted head counts of their students. By 1:15 p.m., the Springfield Police Department had been called. Officer Rachel Martinez was the first to arrive, her expression serious but calming as she interviewed Tom and Lisa in the principal's office. "When was the last confirmed sighting of your son?" she asked, notebook open. "Around 11:45, Tom said, his voice strained. "He was talking to one of the judges about his drone project." Lisa sat rigid in her chair, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "He wouldn't just wander off. He's a responsible boy. He knows better." Officer Martinez nodded sympathetically. "We're going to find him. Kids this age sometimes get distracted, especially in exciting environments like this." But as the afternoon wore on, that reassurance began to ring hollow. The school was systematically searched, every classroom, closet, bathroom, and office. The grounds were combed, the playground, the sports fields, the wooded area behind the school. Volunteers from the neighborhood joined the search, calling Mike's name as they checked nearby streets and parks. At 3:30 p.m., something disturbing came to light. A janitor reported hearing what sounded like a child's scream coming from near the school's rear exit around noon, but had assumed it was just kids playing. The exit door, which should have been alarmed, had a malfunctioning security system. By nightfall, the search had expanded to include canine units and officers from neighboring jurisdictions. News vans parked outside Springfield Elementary, their lights casting eerie glows in the growing darkness. Lisa and Tom sat in the school library, surrounded by friends and family who had come to offer support, their faces etched with a terror that only parents of missing children can truly understand. The dogs tracked Mike's scent to the school's rear parking lot, where the trail abruptly ended, suggesting he might have entered a vehicle. Security cameras, which might have captured crucial evidence, had been installed at the school but weren't yet operational, a budget decision that would haunt the school board in the coming weeks. As midnight approached, Detective James Morales, a veteran of the Springfield Police Department's Major Crimes Unit, sat across from the Johnsons in their living room. "I want to be completely transparent with you," he said, his voice gentle but serious. "The first 24 hours are critical in missing child cases. We have officers working through the night, and the state police have been notified. We're setting up a command center at the station, and we'll be organizing a wider community search at daybreak." Lisa, who hadn't cried until now, operating on a kind of shocked autopilot, finally broke down. "Someone has our baby," she sobbed, collapsing against Tom's chest. Tom, struggling to maintain composure, looked directly at Detective Morales. "What aren't you telling us?" The detective hesitated before answering. The abrupt end of the trail at the parking lot, combined with the report of a scream, "We're treating this as a possible abduction." The word hung in the air like a physical presence, abduction, a parent's worst nightmare given form. The days that followed unfolded in a blur of search parties, press conferences, and agonizing waits for news that never came. Mike's face appeared on flyers throughout Springfield and neighboring towns. Local news covered the story nightly. The FBI joined the investigation, bringing additional resources and expertise. Tips flooded the hotline set up for the case. Mike was spotted at a mall in Boston. Mike was seen at a rest stop on the interstate. Someone who looked like Mike was at Disneyland with a man and woman. Each lead was investigated. Each led nowhere. 2 weeks after the disappearance, Lisa returned to their home after a community search to find Tom sitting at the kitchen table, staring at Mike's science fair drone, which the police had returned after examining it for evidence. "He worked so hard on this," Tom whispered, his fingers tracing the propellers. Lisa sat beside him, placing her hand over his. "He's going to want it back when he comes home." The statement hung between them, a declaration of faith neither fully believed anymore, but neither could bear to relinquish. As weeks turned to months, the active search scaled back. The FBI agents returned to their field office. The media moved on to other stories. The community, while still supportive, returned to their normal lives. Only the Johnsons remained frozen in time, their lives permanently divided into before and after. Lisa took a leave of absence from teaching that stretched into a resignation. Tom worked mechanically, going through the motions of living while distributing flyers on his postal route. Their marriage, once solid, began showing cracks under the unbearable weight of their shared grief. On the 1-year anniversary of Mike's disappearance, Springfield Elementary held a memorial service. They planted a young oak tree on the playground with a small plaque bearing Mike's name. The gesture was well-intentioned, but felt to Lisa like a concession that Mike was never coming home. "He's not dead," she insisted to Tom that night. "I would feel it if he was. A mother would know." Tom, who had started seeing a grief counselor, gently suggested that Lisa do the same. "Not because he's gone," he clarified, seeing her expression harden, "but because this limbo is destroying you, destroying us." By the 5-year mark, the Johnsons had divorced, another statistic in the cruel reality that many marriages don't survive the loss of a child. Lisa remained in Springfield, unable to leave the last place her son had been seen. Tom moved to Connecticut for a new job and, eventually, a new marriage, though he returned to Springfield regularly to check in with Detective Morales, who had kept the case open despite pressure to reclassify it as cold. Life in Springfield continued. Charlie Davis graduated high school, went to college, and rarely thought about his childhood friend except on odd, quiet moments when something, a drone flying in a park, a certain shade of blonde hair, would trigger a memory. Mr. Patterson retired. The oak tree grew taller and stronger each year. New families moved into the neighborhood, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded before their arrival. Lisa Johnson remained in the blue house on Maple Street, though she'd finally repainted it a soft gray, unable to bear the constant reminder of Mike's favorite color. She created a small foundation in Mike's name that raised money for search and rescue operations for missing children. She spoke at conferences about her experience, her resilience inspiring others while masking her own unhealed wounds. And then, 15 years after that fateful Saturday in Springfield, a small museum dedicated to technological innovation opened in Boston. Among its exhibits was a display on the evolution of drone technology, starting with military applications and progressing through civilian and commercial uses. In a glass case containing early prototype models built by enthusiasts was a small, crudely constructed drone with wooden base. Donated anonymously, the placard stated, but bearing remarkable similarity to designs that would later revolutionize the industry. A visiting school group barely glanced at the display, more interested in the interactive exhibits with flashing lights and moving parts. But one chaperone, a former science teacher named Robert Patterson, stopped cold when he saw it. The drone looked exactly like the one Mike Johnson had built for the science fair 20 years earlier. The security camera at the museum captured Mr. Patterson examining the drone for several minutes, then urgently speaking to a museum guide, pointing at the display with increasing animation. The footage later showed him making a phone call from the museum lobby, his free hand shaking visibly as he paced. That phone call would set in motion a chain of events that would finally begin to unravel the mystery of what happened to Mike Johnson on that spring day in Springfield. But even Mr. Patterson couldn't have imagined where that mystery would lead, or the astonishing truth that would eventually come to light. Detective James Morales, now a captain nearing retirement, was at his desk reviewing case files when his phone rang. The voice on the other end was familiar, but aged by the passage of time. "Captain Morales, this is Robert Patterson. I was a teacher at Springfield Elementary 20 years ago." Morales straightened in his chair. "Mr. Patterson, of course. What can I do for you?" "It's about Mike Johnson." Those 3 words caused Morales to reach for a pen. In his 35 years of police work, he'd never been able to fully let go of the Johnson case, the missing boy whose disappearance had no witnesses, no evidence, and ultimately no resolution. "I'm at the Boston Museum of Innovation," Patterson continued, his voice unsteady. "There's a drone on display here that looks identical to the one Mike built for the science fair, the one he disappeared with." Morales' skepticism was immediate but measured. "Similar designs aren't uncommon, Mr. Patterson." "This isn't similar. It's identical. Down to the wood grain pattern on the base that Tom Johnson cut in his garage. I helped Mike with this project, Captain. I'd stake my reputation on this being his drone." The urgency in Patterson's voice convinced Morales to drive to Boston that afternoon. What he found at the museum confirmed Patterson's suspicions. The drone in the display case wasn't just similar to Mike's, it was undeniably the same one. A comparison with police evidence photos left no room for doubt. "Who donated this?" Morales asked the museum curator, a nervous man in wire-rimmed glasses who clearly hadn't expected his technology exhibit to become the focus of a police investigation. "The donation was anonymous," the curator explained, scrolling through records on his tablet. "It came with a larger collection of early drone prototypes about 3 years ago. The paperwork was handled by a law firm representing the donor." "I need that law firm's information," Morales said, already reaching for his phone to update Lisa Johnson. Sarah Collins was working late at her modest office in downtown Springfield when her cell phone rang. A former FBI agent who had resigned to start her own private investigation firm, Collins specialized in cold cases, particularly those involving missing children. The Johnson case had been one of her first assignments as a young agent, and its unresolved nature had haunted her professional career. "Collins," she answered, balancing the phone between her ear and shoulder as she continued typing notes on another case. "Sarah, it's Jim Morales. I think we've got something on the Johnson boy." Collins stopped typing. After all this time? His science fair project just turned up in a museum in Boston, donated anonymously. "I'll meet you at the station in 20 minutes. By midnight, Collins and Morales had assembled what they jokingly called their reunion tour, the core investigators who had worked the Johnson case years earlier. They gathered in a conference room at the Springfield Police Department, surrounded by boxes of evidence pulled from storage and a freshly created timeline on the whiteboard. "The law firm that handled the donation is Watkins, Pruitt and Associates," Morales explained to the group. "They're claiming attorney-client privilege and refusing to disclose the donor's identity without a court order." "Which we're working on," Collins added, "but could take days or weeks." Retired FBI Special Agent Marcus Thompson, who had led the original investigation, studied the photos. "This is definitely the Johnson boys project. The real question is, how did it end up in that museum, and why now, after all these years?" Collins opened her laptop. "I've been researching the museum's major donors and board members. Nothing stands out yet, but I'm running background checks on everyone associated with the technology wing." As the night progressed, they methodically reviewed the original case files, witness statements, search patterns, tips that had been investigated and dismissed. Fresh eyes on old evidence sometimes revealed overlooked details, but in this case, the mystery only deepened. "The drone was never found during the initial investigation," Thompson noted, flipping through his old field notes. "We assumed it was taken along with the boy. Now we know it was, but by whom? And why preserve it all these years, only to donate it to a museum?" Around 3 a.m., as the team's energy began to flag, a young officer knocked on the conference room door. "Captain Morales, there's a call for you on line 2. Woman says she has information about the Johnson case." Morales picked up the phone, activating the speaker function so the team could hear. "This is Captain Morales." "Captain," a female voice responded, soft but clear. "My name is Eleanor Grant. I was a custodian at Springfield Elementary when Mike Johnson disappeared." Collins and Thompson exchanged glances. Eleanor Grant had been interviewed multiple times during the original investigation. She had nothing significant to report then. "Ms. Grant," Morales said carefully, "we have your statements on file from 2001. You told investigators you didn't see anything unusual that day." "I lied," she replied simply. "I was scared. But seeing his face on the news again tonight, I can't keep quiet anymore." The room fell silent, the only sound the soft hum of the air conditioning and the faint static of the phone line. "I saw him leave with a man," Eleanor continued, "through the back exit. The man was wearing a visitor's badge, but I recognized him. He'd been to the school before, talking to the science teachers about some kind of partnership program." Morales leaned forward. "Do you remember his name?" "Dr. Russell, Alexander Russell. He worked for that research place outside of town, Next Gen Laboratories, I think it was called." Thompson was already typing on his laptop, searching for information about Next Gen Laboratories. "Why didn't you come forward with this information at the time, Ms. Grant?" Collins asked, unable to keep a note of frustration from her voice. "Because the next day a man came to my house. He showed me a badge, said he was with the government. He told me if I ever mentioned seeing Dr. Russell with the boy, my son would lose his military scholarship. My boy was at West Point then. It was his only chance at a college education. I couldn't risk it." Her voice broke. "I've carried this guilt for 20 years." After arranging for a formal statement from Eleanor Grant the following morning, the team refocused their efforts on NextGen Laboratories and Dr. Alexander Russell. NextGen was a private research facility that closed down in 2007, Thompson reported, scrolling through search results. They specialized in advanced computing, artificial intelligence, and drone technology for military applications. "Any connection to our victim?" Morales asked. Collins, who had been searching through old evidence photos on her laptop, suddenly turned the screen toward the group. "Maybe this." The photo showed Mike's bedroom, taken during the initial investigation. On his desk, partially visible under a school notebook, was a letter with the NextGen logo at the top. "How did we miss this?" Thompson muttered, enlarging the image. "It was catalogued as miscellaneous school papers," Collins said, checking the evidence log. "No one made the connection at the time." As dawn broke over Springfield, the investigation had new life. A judge was awakened to sign warrants for NextGen's old records and Dr. Alexander Russell's last known whereabouts. The law firm that handled the museum donation was served with a court order to reveal their client. Lisa Johnson, now in her 50s with streaks of gray in her once brown hair, sat in her kitchen as Collins and Morales updated her on the developments. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her teacup. "After all this time," she whispered, "do you think—"
"Is there any chance he's still alive?" Collins, who had learned over years of working with victims' families that false hope could be more damaging than harsh truth, chose her words carefully. "We don't know yet, Lisa, but we're closer to answers than we've ever been." The next 48 hours brought a flurry of activity. NextGen's corporate records, obtained from a storage facility in Delaware, revealed that Dr. Alexander Russell had indeed been their Director of Talent Acquisition, a position that involved identifying promising young minds for their research programs. He visited dozens of schools across New England, Collins reported during their morning briefing, looking for gifted children to participate in what they called enrichment programs. "Sounds like recruiting," Thompson observed. "Or grooming," Morales added grimly. The most disturbing discovery came from NextGen's financial records. Regular payments had been made to a trust fund established for a Michael Carter, beginning just 1 month after Mike Johnson's disappearance and continuing until the company's dissolution in 2007. "They changed his name," Lisa said when shown the records, her voice hollow. "They took my son and gave him a new identity." The law firm representing the museum donor finally complied with the court order, revealing that the anonymous benefactor was indeed Michael Carter, now a 29-year-old resident of Washington, D.C. His attorney provided no further information beyond a statement that Mr. Carter was traveling abroad and unavailable for comment. A background check on Michael Carter yielded results that left the investigation team in stunned silence. MIT graduate at 19, PhD in artificial intelligence at 22, founded Carter Tech at 24, specializing in advanced drone technology for civilian and military applications. Net worth estimated at over $300 million, Collins read from her laptop. And as of 6 months ago, appointed as the youngest ever United States Secretary of Technology. Thompson let out a low whistle. From missing child to cabinet member in 20 years. Photos of Secretary Michael Carter were easy to find. He was a public figure after all. The team gathered around Collins's laptop, studying images of a confident young man with blonde hair and intense blue eyes, standing at podiums, shaking hands with world leaders, smiling for official portraits. Lisa Johnson, who had insisted on being present for every development, reached out to touch the screen. "It's him," she said with quiet certainty. "That's my Mike." Facial recognition software confirmed what a mother's heart already knew. Despite the passage of time, the core features matched those of 9-year-old Mike Johnson with 89% probability, well above the threshold for positive identification. But the most compelling evidence came from an unexpected source. A detailed biography of Secretary Carter in Technology Today magazine included a childhood photo credited to Family Archives, showing a young Michael Carter at approximately age 12 standing proudly next to what appeared to be an advanced version of the same drone design now displayed in the Boston Museum. "They didn't even try to hide it," Morales said, shaking his head in disbelief. "They just reinvented him." As the evidence mounted, the investigation shifted from a missing persons case to something far more complex, involving potential kidnapping, identity fraud, and questions about how a child could be effectively erased and recreated in plain sight. The FBI officially rejoined the investigation, with jurisdiction over potential federal crimes. The Department of Justice was quietly notified of the situation involving a sitting cabinet secretary. Media speculation began to swirl as reporters noticed unusual activity around the long-dormant Johnson case. Through it all, Lisa Johnson remained remarkably composed, a woman who had lived with uncertainty for 20 years and now faced the prospect of answers she had both craved and feared. "What happens now?" she asked Collins, as they sat in Lisa's living room surrounded by old photo albums of Mike's first 9 years. "We've requested a meeting with Secretary Carter through official channels," Collins explained. "The FBI is handling it delicately, given his position. And if he refuses?" "He won't," Collins said with quiet confidence. "The evidence is too strong, and the story would come out anyway. Better for him to control the narrative." 2 days later, a secure video call was arranged between the investigation team and Secretary Carter, who was attending a technology conference in Tokyo. Lisa Johnson, despite objections from the FBI, insisted on being present. The conference room at the Springfield Police Department fell silent as the large monitor on the wall flickered to life. And then, for the first time in 20 years, Lisa Johnson looked into the eyes of her son. Michael Carter's expression revealed nothing as he studied the faces before him. Dressed in an impeccable suit, he projected an aura of calm authority that belied the extraordinary circumstances of the meeting. "Secretary Carter," the FBI special agent in charge began, "thank you for making time for this discussion. I believe you understand why we've requested this meeting." "I do," Carter replied, his voice deeper than anyone had imagined Mike Johnson's would become, but with the same thoughtful cadence Lisa remembered. "Though I must say, I expected this conversation years ago." Lisa could contain herself no longer. "Mike," she said, her voice breaking, "it's really you." Carter's composed expression faltered for just a moment, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his features. "Mrs. Johnson," he acknowledged with a slight nod, "I've thought about this moment for a very long time." "What happened to you?" she asked, the question that had haunted her dreams for 2 decades finally given voice. Secretary Carter glanced at his watch. "I have a keynote address in 40 minutes, but I believe I owe you all an explanation, particularly you, Mrs. Johnson." And then, with the same methodical precision he was known for in his professional life, Michael Carter began to tell his story. "I remember the science fair," he started, his gaze distant. "I was showing my drone to one of the judges, Dr. Russell. He was impressed, asked questions no one else had thought to ask. He told me about NextGen's work with autonomous flight systems, said my design had potential applications I hadn't even considered." Lisa nodded, encouraging him to continue. "He invited me to see the lab, just a quick tour while the judges deliberated. Said it was right nearby, that we'd be back before the awards ceremony." Carter's expression hardened. "I was 9, flattered by the attention of a real scientist. I went willingly." "But you screamed," Collins interjected. "A witness heard you cry out." Carter nodded. "When we got to his car, I had second thoughts. Told him I should tell my parents where I was going. That's when I learned it wasn't really an invitation." The room was utterly silent as he continued. "I was taken to a NextGen facility, not the main campus, but a research station in rural Vermont.
Dr. Russell explained that they had been monitoring promising students, that I had been selected for a special program because of my aptitude. He said my parents had been informed, that they had agreed to my participation. "We never," Lisa began, but Carter raised a hand. "I know that now, Mrs. Johnson, but at 9, when an authority figure tells you something, you believe it." He paused. "Especially when they show you falsified emails and forged consent forms." "How long did they keep you there?" Morales asked. 3 years, Carter replied, in what they called the Prometheus program, identifying and developing children with exceptional technological aptitude. There were 5 of us, all recruited in similar ways. We received advanced education, access to cutting-edge technology, and constant evaluation. They kidnapped children for some kind of think tank? Thompson's disbelief was evident. NextGen had military contracts worth billions, Carter explained. They were competing with foreign research programs that had been cultivating young talent for decades. They convinced themselves they were serving national interests, creating the next generation of American technological leadership. "When did you realize the truth?" Lisa asked softly. Carter's composed facade cracked slightly. "On my 12th birthday, I found newspaper clippings about missing children in a restricted file. My picture was among them. That night, I accessed NextGen's secure network and found records of my real identity, the payments to maintain my new one, the elaborate cover-up." "Why didn't you try to escape? Contact your family?" Collins pressed. "By then, I had been Michael Carter for 3 years. My education was years beyond my age group. My work was already being implemented in systems I believed were important." He hesitated. "And they made it clear that any attempt to reveal the program would have consequences, not just for me, but for my birth family as well." The implications hung heavy in the air. When NextGen dissolved in 2007, we were all given new backgrounds, prep schools, normal childhoods, clean identities. I went to MIT, started my company, built my life. Carter looked directly at Lisa. "I never forgot who I was, Mrs. Johnson, but I couldn't find a way back without destroying everything, including the safety I believed you'd been guaranteed." "The drone at the museum," Morales said. "That was you, wasn't it? You wanted to be found." For the first time, Carter smiled, a small, sad expression. "NextGen is gone. The people who took me have either died or faded into obscurity. When the president nominated me for secretary, I realized I had enough power and influence to finally control the narrative. The drone was an invitation to those who might remember." "An invitation to what?" Lisa asked. "To the truth," Carter replied simply. "To whatever comes next." The implications of what would come next hung in the air, as the video call ended with arrangements for an in-person meeting following Secretary Carter's return to the United States. The investigation team remained in the conference room, processing the extraordinary story they had just heard. "Do we arrest him when he lands?" a junior FBI agent asked, breaking the stunned silence. "Arrest him for what?" Thompson replied. "He was the victim, not the perpetrator." "There are still crimes here," Collins pointed out. NextGen executives, Dr. Russell if he's still alive, whoever facilitated this over 20 years. "And questions," Morales added. "Lots of questions, like whether Carter is the only recruited child who rose to a position of power." Throughout the discussion, Lisa Johnson remained quiet, her eyes fixed on the now dark monitor where she had seen her son's face. The boy she had lost and the man he had become existed simultaneously in her mind, overlapping images of what was and what might have been. "Lisa?" Collins touched her arm gently. "Are you all right?" "He has his father's expressions," Lisa said softly. "The way he tilts his head when he's considering his words. I would have known him anywhere." The next morning, as Lisa prepared for the press conference that would inevitably follow such a sensational development, her doorbell rang. Standing on her porch was Tom Johnson, flown in from Connecticut overnight after being notified of the discovery. "Is it true?" he asked, his face showing the same mixture of hope and fear that Lisa had lived with for 2 decades. "It's him, Tom," she confirmed, stepping aside to let her ex-husband enter the house they had once shared. "He's alive, he's successful, and he's coming home." As they sat in the kitchen, surrounded by the ghosts of their shared past, Tom asked the question that had been haunting Lisa as well. "What do we do now? He's not our little boy anymore. He's had a whole life without us." Lisa placed her hand over his, a gesture of solidarity they hadn't shared in years. "We do what parents always do, Tom. We love him as he is, not as we remember him." That afternoon, news broke worldwide. Headlines declared the extraordinary resolution to one of the century's most perplexing cold cases. Missing child mystery solved. U.S. Technology Secretary revealed as boy who vanished 20 years ago. Kidnapped prodigy, how Mike Johnson became Michael Carter. Secretary Carter's secret past, from abduction to cabinet. The story captivated the public imagination, a tale of loss, transformation, and the complicated questions about identity and belonging that came with such an unprecedented situation. 3 days later, a private jet landed at Springfield Regional Airport. Secretary Michael Carter descended the steps alone, dressed not in his usual formal attire, but in a simple blue shirt and jeans, an unconscious echo of the clothes he'd worn as a child. Lisa and Tom Johnson waited on the tarmac, having been granted special clearance for this extraordinary reunion. No press was allowed, though photographers with telephoto lenses lined the airport perimeter, desperate to capture the moment. Carter approached slowly, his confident stride faltering slightly as he drew closer to the parents he had last seen as a 9-year-old boy. "Mrs. Johnson," he began formally, then corrected himself. "Mom, Dad." The three stood in a triangle of uncertainty, 2 decades of separation creating an invisible barrier that none knew how to breach. It was Lisa who finally stepped forward, opening her arms in the universal gesture of maternal welcome. After a moment's hesitation, the Secretary of Technology, one of the most powerful people in the United States government, stepped into his mother's embrace, becoming, once again, if only for that moment, her little boy. The drive from the airport to the Johnson home was filled with careful conversation, polite questions about the flight, comments about how Springfield had changed over the years, the kind of small talk strangers might make while avoiding more significant topics. As they pulled into the driveway of the gray house on Maple Street, Carter studied it with an expression of quiet recognition. "You repainted," he observed. "About 10 years ago," Lisa replied, surprised he had noticed. "I remember everything about this house," Carter said softly. "My room was upstairs, second door on the right. Dad's workshop was in the garage. You kept fresh flowers on the dining table, usually daisies." Tom, who had been mostly silent, cleared his throat. "Your room, we've kept it. Not exactly the same, but it's still yours." Inside, the house was both familiar and strange to Carter, like a place visited in a dream. He moved through the living room, touching objects with a sense of wonder. The mantel where his school photos had once stood, the corner where the Christmas tree had been placed each December, the worn spot on the carpet where he had played with his first set of building blocks. "Would you like to see your room?" Lisa asked, sensing his unspoken curiosity. Carter nodded, following his parents up the stairs he had once descended each morning for breakfast. The second door on the right was closed, as if preserving what lay behind it. Lisa opened it to reveal a space that had evolved over the years, No longer a 9-year-old's bedroom with rocket ship posters and toy bins, but a room that had grown with an absent occupant. "Would you like to see your room?" Lisa asked, sensing his unspoken curiosity. Carter nodded, following his parents up the stairs he had once descended each morning for breakfast. The second door on the right was closed, as if preserving what lay behind it. Lisa opened it to reveal a space that had evolved over the years, no longer a 9-year-old's bedroom with rocket ship posters and toy bins, but a room that had grown with an absent occupant.
The twin bed had been replaced with a full-size one, the desk upgraded to accommodate a computer. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with volumes on engineering, physics, and computer science, subjects Lisa imagined her son might have grown to love. "We updated it every few years," she explained, watching Carter take in the room. "We wanted it to be appropriate if you ever came home." "If you ever found me," Carter corrected gently, running his hand along the desk surface. "No," Tom said firmly, "if you came home. There's a difference." Carter turned to face his birth parents, his expression softening. "I did try to find a way back, when I was younger. But they monitored everything, my communications, my movements. By the time I had independence, I had built a life as Michael Carter. I wasn't sure if coming back would help or hurt you more." "It would have been worth any hurt," Lisa said, her voice breaking, "just to know you were alive." The three settled in the living room, the awkwardness between them gradually giving way to the more fundamental connection of family. Carter, or Mike, as his parents still thought of him, explained more about his life after the abduction. The specialized education he received, the psychological manipulation that kept him compliant, the gradual realization that his recruitment had been nothing short of kidnapping. "The other children," Lisa asked, "what happened to them?" "All successful, in different fields," Carter replied. "One's a quantum physicist, another designs artificial intelligence systems for medical diagnostics. The youngest runs a cybersecurity firm. He hesitated. "She died 3 years ago, brain cancer. Next Gen's experiments weren't always as safe as they claimed." Tom leaned forward. "Have you contacted the others about coming forward?" Carter nodded. "We've been in communication for years, ever since we recognized each other at professional conferences and realized our shared past wasn't coincidence. My appointment to the cabinet accelerated our timeline. We agreed I would go first, test the waters." "And the people who took you?" Lisa asked, the question she had been holding back finally surfacing. "Will they be held accountable?" "Dr. Russell died in 2015, Carter said. "But the Next Gen board members who approved the program, the security personnel who enforced our isolation, the educators who knew we were missing children but taught us anyway, they're still out there. With my testimony and the others, there will be prosecutions." As evening fell, the conversation shifted to more personal territory. The life Carter had built as an adult, his achievements and disappointments, his values and beliefs. Lisa and Tom shared stories of their lives during his absence, their divorce, their attempts to move forward while never forgetting, the annual rituals they maintained on his birthday and the anniversary of his disappearance. "I watched you, Carter admitted, as they finished a dinner Lisa had prepared, his childhood favorite of spaghetti and meatballs, which he had mentioned remembering. From a distance. Social media, news articles about the foundation you started. I knew you were still in Springfield, still teaching until 10 years ago." "You could have reached out," Tom said, not accusingly, but with genuine curiosity. "I almost did, many times." Carter set down his fork. "But I was afraid. Not just of the consequences I'd been threatened with, but of disappointing you. The son you lost was a little boy with simple dreams. The person I became is complicated, shaped by experiences I wouldn't wish on anyone." "Mike," Lisa said, using the name she had called him in her thoughts for 20 years. "No parent expects their child to remain frozen in time. We all become complicated people, shaped by our experiences. Yours were just more extreme than most." Carter, or perhaps in that moment, Mike, smiled for the first time since arriving, a genuine expression that transformed his features from those of a polished public figure to someone more recognizably human. "I've missed so much," he said softly. "Your lives, this town, the normal childhood I might have had." "We've missed you too," Tom replied, "but we have now, however complicated it might be." The following morning, Michael Carter held a press conference on the steps of Springfield City Hall. Flanked by his birth parents and supported by the full weight of his cabinet position, he told his story to the world. The abduction, the years at NextGen, the creation of his new identity, and his decision to finally reconnect with his past. "I stand before you as both Mike Johnson and Michael Carter," he told the assembled reporters and cameras, "a child who was taken and the man who found his way back. My story is extraordinary only because it has a resolution many missing children's cases do not." He announced the formation of a special Department of Justice task force to investigate NextGen's Prometheus program and bring charges against those responsible. He pledged technological resources to help locate other missing children. And he asked, with the authority of his office and the moral weight of his experience, for privacy as his family began the complex process of reunion. In the weeks that followed, the story dominated national conversation. Legal experts debated the statute of limitations for various charges related to the case. Technology publications analyzed Carter's career for signs of NextGen's influence. Psychologists discussed the long-term effects of such an unusual upbringing. The other Prometheus children came forward one by one, each with their own version of the same story. Talented children, selected, abducted, and reprogrammed to serve what NextGen had called the greater good of American technological supremacy. For Lisa and Tom Johnson, the media frenzy was secondary to the more personal process of getting to know the son they had lost, now an adult with his own life, habits, and perspectives. They navigated this new relationship carefully, respecting the boundaries Carter established, while gradually rebuilding the trust that had been shattered 2 decades earlier. Carter maintained his position in the cabinet. His unique story and transparent handling of its revelation actually increased public support for his technological initiatives. He established a foundation to support families of missing children and fund research into more effective search methods. And he asked, with the authority of his office and the moral weight of his experience, for privacy as his family began the complex process of reunion. In the weeks that followed, the story dominated national conversation. Legal experts debated the statute of limitations for various charges related to the case. Technology publications analyzed Carter's career for signs of NextGen's influence. Psychologists discussed the long-term effects of such an unusual upbringing. The other Prometheus children came forward one by one, each with their own version of the same story. Talented children, selected, abducted, and reprogrammed to serve what NextGen had called the greater good of American technological supremacy. For Lisa and Tom Johnson, the media frenzy was secondary to the more personal process of getting to know the son they had lost, now an adult with his own life, habits, and perspectives. They navigated this new relationship carefully, respecting the boundaries Carter established, while gradually rebuilding the trust that had been shattered 2 decades earlier. Carter maintained his position in the cabinet. His unique story and transparent handling of its revelation actually increased public support for his technological initiatives. He established a foundation to support families of missing children and fund research into more effective search methods. And he began spending regular weekends in Springfield, slowly reintegrating himself into the community that had never stopped searching for him. 6 months after the reunion, Carter invited his parents to his home in Washington, a modern penthouse apartment with spectacular views of the Capitol. As they sat on his balcony watching the sunset, he handed them a small wooden box. "I've kept this all these years," he said as Lisa opened it. Inside was a collection of childhood mementos, a family photo taken from their living room, carefully preserved, a small rock from their backyard, a handwritten birthday card Lisa had given him shortly before his disappearance. "They let me keep one box of personal items," he explained, "said it would help with the transition. I think they underestimated how powerful memories can be, especially for a child." Lisa touched the card gently, recognizing her own handwriting from 20 years earlier. "To my brilliant boy, may all your dreams take flight." "They did," Carter said, following her gaze, "just not in the way any of us expected." Tom placed his hand on his son's shoulder, a gesture that had become more natural with time. "Are you happy, Mike, with the life you've built?" Carter considered the question with the thoughtfulness that had become his trademark. "I'm fulfilled by my work,
Proud of what I've accomplished, satisfied with the justice we're bringing to those who took me." He looked at his parents. "But happy? I think I'm still learning what that means, with your help." As night fell over Washington, the three Johnsons remained on the balcony, talking about the past they had lost and the future they might build together. The story of Mike Johnson and Michael Carter was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. In Springfield, the oak tree planted in memory of a missing boy continued to grow on the elementary school playground. The plaque beneath it had been updated with a new inscription that captured the extraordinary journey of the child who disappeared and the man who returned. For Mike Johnson and Michael Carter, two names for one remarkable life. May his story remind us that even in our darkest moments, hope is never truly lost. And in homes across America, parents held their children a little tighter, knowing that sometimes, against all odds, miracles do happen. Missing children can come home, even if home and they themselves have been transformed by the passage of time and the unexpected turns of life's journey.